I give lots of talks on food and food additives, and I sometimes use an interesting line when I say, now you know why the Frenchman carries his baguette in this fashion. And I show this picture, and that usually elicits some chuckles. But there is a backstory here, of course. And the story is about bread, which we have been eating for thousands of years, not without some controversy. One of the current controversies today, of course, is the gluten in bread. That's a protein, and that is what really allows bread to rise. As the yeast releases carbon dioxide, it's trapped by the gluten. But there are some people who have a concern about gluten. About 1% of the population suffers from something called celiac disease, and they have to scrupulously avoid all gluten because it can cause all sorts of serious digestive problems. But the rest of us, we don't have to worry about that. There are some people who say that they have gluten intolerance, that is not celiac disease. That's sort of a questionable diagnosis. But anyway, there are other problems with making bread. One is the problem of what is called ropiness. Now, you've probably not seen this, and I'll explain why you haven't seen this. This happens when there's infection by bacteria of the Bacillus species. These are not disease-causing, but they cause this stringiness in the bread. Nobody likes that. And then, of course, there are other problems. The mold on bread. No one likes to see that. Well, these days, we don't have to worry about the mold or the ropiness. You don't find it in modern bread. Why? Because when we look at the list of additives, one of the additives that we see there is calcium propionate. And that's a preservative. It's an antimicrobial. It prevents the ropiness. It prevents the mold. This is something that is desirable, except that for some people, the red flag of worry goes up and say, it's an additive, it's a preservative. Do we really want that in our food? Do we know that it is safe? Well, in the case of calcium propionate, indeed, we do know that it is safe. It is found naturally in our food supply. For example, Swiss cheese. The holes, of course, are caused by carbon dioxide, but a lot of the flavor of the Swiss cheese comes from a bacterium that produces propionic acid, and it is there in much higher concentrations than what we find in bread. Now, to top it all off, calcium propionate is also something that we produce in our body. Anytime that we eat fat, the fat is metabolized and some of it is converted into propionates. So we actually sweat propionates. We sweat preservatives. In France, baguettes are not allowed to have any kind of additives. And that's okay because they consume the baguette the same day, usually within hours of buying it. But now you know why the Frenchman might transport his baguette under his arm, sort of adding a little bit of natural preservation.